Hey, Liron here. One of the biggest struggles I hear from beginners and my students is what color are the shadows, right? That's the thing that throws people's impressions the most. I want to offer some kind of an interesting process that might help you with that, with the color of shadows, and have in mind everything in a scene is a shadow, right? One version or another. Anything that is not fully blasted by sunlight and is just white is a shadow. It's a shadow version of the color you're seeing. We'll get into that in a couple of moments. So, look at what I'm doing here. I am throwing myself in the water and just painting that first detail, that car, without any sketch. Now, I know you might be worried that doing this you'll have no accuracy, and you will have less accuracy, but set it aside for a moment, okay? Because this isn't really about accuracy of shapes. It's more about the accuracy of colors and shadows. So, my theory is that if you paint this way instead of based on a shape, like a pre-existing sketch and a shape, the only thing you really have to hold on to is what you put on paper. There's nothing there, and then when you put something on paper, it shows up. And so the one and only thing you'll be focused on is what's on paper. And that gets you to really pay close attention to the colors and the values, okay? So even though the shape might be a little less accurate, you really have nothing to go by but whatever it is you painted. And let me give you one more piece of advice for that. Yes, the first thing you put to paper may not be accurate color-wise too and shadow-wise, but you can always just put more paint on it while it's still wet and reshape and recolor and revalue it, okay? So I would strongly recommend you give this a try. Do it for whatever you want. It can be a car like me, or it can be something more organic like trees or like people even. Something that gets you interested in it, a subject matter that fascinates you, because what I think happens is it's not going to work for everyone, but when you have nothing on paper, really the only thing you have to focus on is the colors you're seeing. And let me tell you, this is a scene I have been challenged by a lot, and really the only thing that got me to paint something that closely resembles the impression I wanted, forget about accuracy. What I wanted to achieve was doing it this way, okay? So once we have that semblance of a car here, you can start expanding out and adding details. It doesn't really matter. There is no work process. There is no like a set way of doing things. This is more about what inspires you and what gives you more visual data, right? Because when you're out there and doing plein air, you get a lot of visual data. But sometimes, we all paint in the studio so much and don't go out nearly enough. The result of that is very flat colors, very hard to see the nuances. It's not like being there and breathing the air, right? It's so different. Your brain gets less stimulation, less data. And that stimulation is really underestimated. It's really... it adds a lot to what you are able to put on paper. So if you don't have that, one way of creating that, almost in a fake way almost, is just paint on a clean piece of paper with nothing there before, because you will start gaining data from what you're looking at. From a practical standpoint, the car is a mix of cools and warms. The top parts face the sky more, so you get more violets and blues. The lower section gets a little more gray and brown, okay? Now, if you want to convey a sense of light, and that's an inherent part of conveying shadows, right? You really want to be mindful of where it is light and where it is dark. And a big part of this scene is trapping the lights, as I often speak about, to where they belong. So a strong light here is the sky, and that little trail or road in the horizon. And that parking lot, the ground, is a very strong place where the light is trapped, right there close to where you see it. The light is reflected in the asphalt. So I started with just a wet brush with water, and then I slowly close in on that with a combination of yellows, reds, a bit of violet, and blues. You can use whatever colors you want, okay? But the idea is the closer we are to the light source, the warmer it is and the lighter it is. Those are the only two axes you care about: temperature and value. right? So the more you remove yourself away from that middle point, the highlight, and don't worry, we're going to do another passing on that parking lot ground, you'll see. You go a little cooler and darker. Okay, now as for the sky, one more place where it's going to help us close in on the light, okay, because the lower parts of the sky are a little lighter. The top left corner is the darker bit. By the way, you don't have to follow this at all. You can paint the sky however you want. A lot of this is the effect of the sun coming through the horizon, reflecting on the car, whatever it may be, right? You can flatten the sky. You can leave them white too. That will work. A lot of interpretive work is totally up to you. What I'm saying is, the interpretation doesn't matter as much as simply you interpreting. It doesn't matter what it is. Remove that temptation to believe that there is a perfect way to paint. There isn't. Like, look at this painting. Now, one thing that I can't get enough of and that keeps me hooked to watercolor painting is that organic feel. There's something very organic about simply putting paint to paper without nothing being there before that, without the sketch, right? This same organic feeling is what you feel, again, when you paint plein air. The beautiful thing about painting organically is whether you were accurate or not, whether you got the impression or the realism you wanted or not, the painting will still feel very much yours. And I would challenge you to paint this way, and then a couple of weeks later, just take the painting out of wherever you store it. Take a look at it. I promise it will have a charm to it. Again, whether it was accurate, whether it achieved the vision you wanted, in retrospect, it will have a lot of charm to it. A video I'm planning on making is a quick sketchbook tour just to show you some of my recent works, both plein air and from direct observation and not. And a big part of me, you know, whenever I finish these, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if it was that good, or I might have messed it up completely, because plein air is a different beast. But then after a couple of weeks, I opened these paintings up and I'm like, you know what? This is so much better than a lot of the things I produce indoors. This has soul to it. So I think going back to what art is all about is that organic creation. Just painting things organically. Forget about accuracy. Forget about trying to achieve a goal. That organic process is how you make discoveries, is how you carve out your own style and your own uniqueness, is how you enjoy this and you make this, you know, sustainable over the long run, because so many people burn out. On what? On art? Are you seriously burning yourself out on the thing that's supposed to give you the most freedom? It's really ridiculous when you think about it. Totally understandable though, but really think about it. Like, it's the thing that gives you freedom. Forget about technology for a moment. Imagine we're living like 200 or 300 or 500 or 1,000 years ago, whatever painting means they had back then. Just imagine it's you, that piece of paper or fabric and paint, and whatever it is you're looking at. Remove all other obstacles in the way. For many people, screens are an obstacle. So that means plein air. For other people, you know, just print it on a piece of paper. That's another way of getting rid of an obstacle. Notice how I barely need to talk about technique, because it's not the most important thing here. We're putting paint on paper. My technique isn't good here, honestly. It's just, I mean, it is a reflection of my experience, and I have been doing this for a decade, but it's not like the highlight, and it's a lot of it is pretty sloppy just because I kind of am going for it, right? So what we have right now is a very organic car, a very organic background. I am doing my best to make the most out of it while it's still wet, because my plan is, you know, once it dries, I don't want to touch it too much, just a little bit of details to the left. But especially this foliage, just get it in one go. Look at how the paint moves very freely when the paper's wet. This is going to be a car, by the way. You'll see a car emerging there after a couple of washes. Trust me, it's going to be beautiful. The benefit of painting very organically is that things just happen. They just happen on paper. And the painting will have charm. Trust me, it will have a lot of charm. Now, the cursory, kind of talking about my supplies and materials. The main brush you saw me using up till now was the Michael, not this one, the previous one was the, funny enough, it switched as soon as I talked about it. Michael Solovyev's one from his 3-brush set. Fantastic set. I recommend you get it. It's just so good. Every brush there of the 3 is useful. What I'm using now is the Skoda Barocco. Is this Barocco, I think? Size 16, the green one from the plein air set. I will be using the Perla size 12 soon too, just for smaller details. But what I'm doing here, so first I established the colors, now I'm establishing the values. And look at this little piece of light reflecting from the back of the car and from the sun or horizon, wherever it is, I'm making sure to give it a room. You can do that later, but I wanted to merge this with my current washes, okay? Now, the most important thing for me is that there is a sense of light, mood, atmosphere in this painting. That's the only thing I care about. The rest doesn't matter as much. Accuracy, colors even, they don't matter as much. So that's what we're going for. And for that, we're going to need that beautiful shadow under the car, okay? A big trap you might fall into, and I fall into all the time, and with this one too, is contrasts. Contrast is important, but there is a tendency to exaggerate whatever it is you're seeing, because you're seeing a change and you're thinking it's a huge change, or you try overcorrections is the name of the game, right? Think about even when you're driving, you want to make small changes with the steering wheel. You don't want to overcorrect all the time because that'll drive you crazy. Same thing with watercolor. If you painted something before and you don't understand why your contrast feels awkward, your colors feel awkward, very often you're over-interpreting and you're exaggerating things that didn't really require exaggeration for the most part. So be mindful of that. For example, here we have a temperature change. So I'm using a bit more blue, but it's not going to be like a crazy, I'm going to use more blue than that in a moment, I believe, but it's not going to be a crazy temperature change because you still want it to feel organic and kind of together, right? By the way, I always have to remind myself, if you want to paint loose watercolors like this and have fun and enjoy the painting process, check out the frustration-free watercolor course. I'm going to put the first link in the description box below. You might have already clicked the link, put in your information, but haven't checked it out, like did a checkout, like buy the course and start learning from it. So if that's you, go ahead, check out the emails I sent you. Just join this course. It's like $49, one-time purchase, lifetime access to these 26, 27, something like this, lessons that are just fantastic. There are really, really good high-quality demos there, and it's all structured. So if you're looking for a structured approach to master watercolor looseness and freedom, check out the frustration-free watercolor course. Freedom is the basis on which everything else lies and rests upon. If you want realism, right? If you want that realistic effect in your painting and have that wow factor when people look at it, guess what? You're gonna need looseness and freedom. So that's almost a prerequisite with watercolor. So go ahead and check that box off. Just master freedom, then you can take it in whichever direction you want, okay? So check it out, first link in the description box below. The only way to do all of this, whether it's more organic experimentation, whether it's more, some of my more accurate processes that I do share occasionally, like really more methodical and thought out washes, it all leans against some modicum of freedom. You really want to have that freedom. And again, look at how my brush travels across the paper. Am I overthinking these lines? I'm not. I'm just putting them there. This is the gas tank thing, and then I'm going to put the tail light there. The tail light is just a dark red, right? You can barely see its color in this setting. And say what you will about this painting. It's definitely far from perfect, but it's so pretty and it feels like me. I love that rawness. And especially now with AI being like this crazy thing that can do so many visual things now, from videos to paintings, the results are really, really good. The one thing you have creatively left is that organic feeling in your painting. So I think imperfection and a bit of rawness is something that will be valued and appreciated in the future. I can definitely see it happening. A little bit of imperfection can go a long way. Check out this bit. I'm putting green, a bit of a neutral green, but neutralized, but I'm going to go back with a clean, opaque yellow watercolor. Look at this. So beautiful. This is why I'm a big fan of lemon yellows, stuff like that, because you can paint light on dark and get a smooth transition from light to dark that just looks fantastic. I love this barn in the distance, by the way, that blue kind of gray roof. Just wonderful. These are all little things to add something for the viewer to look at, but of course the focal point is kind of that. It's not just the car, I would say. The focal point is this entire placement of the asphalt in the foreground and how it catches the light, okay? And whatever is your focal point is the thing you end up naturally developing more. People ask me often, do I decide in advance what my focal point is going to be, or do I have some kind of a strategy for capturing a focal point? The honest answer is, for the most part, no. I start with the thing that interests me the most about a scene, or I'll just paint it very organically top to bottom, and the focal point will emerge naturally. It just happens. The things that interest you are the things you're going to work into and devote more time to, and the natural focal point will just emerge. That's the best, most organic way of doing it. If you're looking for an organic factor, you can will really think it through. You can carve it out. You can plan it more. And that definitely works for many artists. For me, it's more about just painting things as best as I can as I see them and letting the focal point kind of emerge very naturally. Now, check out the car on the right because I'm going to start bringing in more opaque details with it. This is opaque watercolor. It's not gouache. It's just watercolor. Look at the car. There's no car. Look at what happens once I put in just a couple of opaque marks, and you tell me if there's a car after this or not. This is just so fun to paint this way, with the keyword being fun. This is what everyone craves in their watercolors. Just fun. I'm going to put in some beautiful kind of highlights within the shadow. It's not really highlights. These are the, of course, markings, of course, of the parking lot. And then as we switch over to the light side, not the shadow, I'm going to bring a cleaner version of that white to really show that it catches the light a little more. These small touches, funny enough, even for the overall composition, they play a big role. Look at this beautiful highlight. I'm going to smear it around in a moment with my finger to really give that reflecting light feel. See? And the finger can be a really good way of kind of blending an edge of opaque, thick paint, okay? We're going to throw in a couple of these power lines just to create that, what do you call it? Like the sequence from front to back. These are the types of things that really bring attention to the depth of the painting. One of the biggest struggles I had when I got started was creating a sense of depth, not just with the values, but with the drawing itself and the composition. I would paint such flat scenes, but now that I know what scenes to choose, how to frame my scenes, and then what to put in them, the depth, sense of depth is just, it becomes a byproduct of how I paint. Not to say I'm perfect, right? I'm still learning this. A decade and a bit is a lot, but 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, that's I think, where you get crazy good. And if I'm being honest with you, the past year and a half, I had much less time to paint, unfortunately. Just, life stuff, baby, busy hours, more work on other sides of the business. So my progress has been slowing down, and that's fine. It's okay to slow down for a while, do other things. If I really put my mind to it and I dedicate time for a painting, I can create a really, really good result. But my kind of baseline default result, yes, definitely my progress has slowed down. But, I'm still happy with most of what I produce. And this is no exception. I really like this one. Very organic, very raw, very messy. But I think it has a lot of soul to it. Again, if you want to get that kind of an effect, right, of rawness and natural feeling in your paintings, check out the frustration-free watercolor course. First link in the description box below. I have a plan for a couple of really cool things to do with you in the future. I want to do like a 30-day runway program where you sign up. It's a 30-day kind of a challenge. Every day I drop a new lesson and we're doing stuff together. It's going to be really, really fun. So that's something that is in the making. We'll keep you updated. I do want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. Really, really appreciate that. It's just another awesome stream of income that I really appreciate. And you get credits at the end of the videos and access to a couple of exclusive processes over there. So if you're not there, check it out. Like, I have 300,000 subscribers. The videos get from anywhere from 2 to 10K views, and I don't know how many Patreon supporters I have, like 180, 200. I think it could easily turn to 500, 600 people. So would really appreciate if you check that out, and I will be able to dedicate more time there to add new processes and on a more frequent basis if I do get more supporters. So thank you so much. We'll see you in the next vid. Enough rambling. We'll talk soon.